Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Deep Dive. We're going to be talking about educational transitions today.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, so, those big shifts we see happening in education, like how we think about and do things differently.
Right, right.
Well, specifically, we're going to be looking at the Agora School model,
Oh, cool.
which is really um, making waves.
Yeah, I've heard about
Yeah,
those.
have you heard about them?
A little bit, yeah.
They're doing some really, really interesting stuff.
Like what kind of stuff?
Well, they're completely rethinking the traditional model of classrooms and grades and even a set curriculum.
Whoa, okay, that's different.
Yeah, it's pretty radical, right?
Sounds like it.
I mean, can you imagine a school without those things?
It's hard to picture.
It is hard to picture.
Yeah,
But luckily, we have a bunch of resources to help us understand it a bit better today.
awesome.
We have a master's thesis that
Mhm.
goes really deep into, what it actually takes to transition to this kind of model. And then we also have a bunch of descriptions about Agora schools and even their manifesto.
Interesting. So we can see what they're all about.
Yeah, exactly. We can see what they're all about from their own words.
Yeah.
Um, and the thesis is interesting because it uses Agora schools as a case study.
Okay.
Um, and it compares this educational shift to other big transitions that we've seen happen.
Okay, like what?
Well, like the move towards renewable energy, for example.
Ah, that's a good analogy.
Right. So it's just like we need to move away from, fossil fuels to create a sustainable future.
Right.
Maybe we need to rethink traditional education
Yeah.
if we want to prepare students for a world that's constantly changing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So the thesis basically argues that traditional education might not be the best way to equip students with the skills they need to thrive in an uncertain future.
I could see that.
Yeah,
Like the world's changing so fast.
exactly. And it's not slowing down.
No.
So we need sustainable education models.
Yeah. Just like we need sustainable energy solutions.
Exactly.
Okay.
So let's unpack this Agora model a little bit more.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
From what I've been reading, it seems like they're all about personalized learning paths.
Okay.
It's not about fitting every student into the same mold.
Right. Every kid's different,
Okay.
learns differently, different
Oh.
paces, different interests.
Exactly. So instead of teachers delivering the same lesson to a whole classroom,
Right.
Agora schools have coaches who work individually with students.
Interesting. So it's like more one-on-one.
Yeah, it's like having a personal guide
Oh, that's cool.
for your educational journey.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. But then the question is how do you even begin to create a personalized learning path?
Yeah, that's a good question.
What does that actually look like
Right.
in practice?
Yeah.
So at Agora schools, the coaches, they collaborate with the students
Okay.
to identify their passions and their interests and their goals.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then they design a learning path that's tailored to those individual needs.
Wow. So it's really driven by what the student wants.
Exactly.
Yeah, correct.
It's about empowering students to take ownership of their education.
Yeah.
I could see how that would be incredibly motivating
Oh, yeah,
for
absolutely.
students, instead of passively absorbing information,
Yeah.
they're actively shaping their own learning experience.
Yeah, that's a huge difference.
Huge difference. Yeah.
Huge difference.
But let's be realistic for a second.
Okay. Yeah.
This all sounds great in theory.
Yeah.
Are there any downsides?
Well, of course, any big change, any big shift,
Right.
it's going to come with its own set of challenges.
Sure.
And the thesis actually dives into that as well.
Okay.
It outlines 5 common problems
5
that
problems.
pop up when you're trying to make a major change in education.
Okay.
Hit me.
All right. What's the first one?
The first challenge is what the thesis calls dissent.
This is
Okay. Not everyone's going to be on board
Oh, I can imagine
with
it.
such a radical
Yeah.
departure from tradition.
Yeah, some teachers might be hesitant to give up control over the curriculum,
Right.
and some parents might worry about how their kids will be prepared for college or the workforce
Right.
without traditional grades.
Absolutely. That's a big concern for a lot of parents.
Huge,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you're going to have differing opinions and perspectives.
Right.
And those can create some serious roadblocks.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, dissent, that's problem number 1.
That's number 1.
What's next?
Number 2 is distributed control.
Distributed control.
In a traditional school system, you have a pretty clear hierarchy of authority.
Right, the principal's in charge.
Exactly.
The teachers report to the principal.
Exactly.
And so on.
A nice little pyramid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Agora schools are trying to break down that hierarchy.
Right. Give more power to the students.
Exactly. They're all about empowering students and giving them more autonomy.
Yeah.
And that can make decision-making a lot more complex.
Yeah, for sure.
If you don't have that clear chain of command, How do you get everyone moving in the same direction?
Right. It's like herding cats.
Totally. It's
Yeah.
like trying to steer a ship where everyone has a hand on the wheel.
I like that analogy.
Yeah. And the third challenge builds on that idea.
Okay.
It's called determination of short-term steps.
Okay.
So it's one thing to have a long-term vision,
Right.
but how do you break that down into concrete, achievable steps
Yeah.
that can be implemented right now in a school?
Right. Got to have that plan.
You need a roadmap.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like having a destination in mind, but no map to get there.
I like that.
You're just wandering around.
Yeah. And especially with something this complex,
Totally.
you need that roadmap to
Yeah.
guide you.
So we've got descent, we've got distributed control.
Yep.
We've got the need for a clear roadmap.
Mm-hmm.
Or the last two,
All right. So number 4 is danger of lock-in.
danger lock-in. Okay.
Early decisions, even ones made with good intentions,
Yeah.
can sometimes limit your options later on.
So it's like choosing a path in a forest, and you don't want to end up at a dead end.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to be able to pivot,
You got to be able to pivot.
change direction if you need to.
And this is especially important for Agora schools.
Right.
Because they're still relatively new and evolving.
Yeah.
How do they stay flexible and adaptable without getting locked into a particular approach?
Right.
That might not be the best fit in the long run.
Right. They need to be able to respond to changes
Right.
as they come up.
Exactly. Okay, so what's the fifth one?
All right. The last one is what the thesis calls political myopia.
Political myopia.
And it's relevant not just for Agora schools, but for any kind of education reform.
Okay.
So education reforms often take a long time to implement,
Yeah, they do.
and they might span multiple political cycles.
Yeah, different administrations, different priorities.
Exactly. So how do you maintain momentum and support for a reform when you have things like school board elections,
Right.
changing government administrations,
Yeah.
shifts in public opinion? It's a big challenge.
Yeah.
You need a strategy.
A long game.
Yeah, a long game on
Right.
building a sustainable system that can weather those political shifts.
Okay, so we've got 5 pretty significant challenges
We do.
to consider: dissent,
Yep.
distributed control,
Uh-huh.
determining those short-term steps,
Yeah.
avoiding lock-in, and navigating those political wins.
No. It's a lot.
It's a lot. It sounds like implementing the Agora model is no easy feat.
You're telling me.
But luckily, the research that we're diving into today
Okay.
explores how a method called group concept mapping,
Okay.
or GCM,
GCM, got it.
can be used to address these very challenges.
Interesting. Okay.
So GCM, what is that, and how can it help with these 5 big problems?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Let's find out.
Right.
I'm excited to learn more about this GCM thing.
Me too.
It sounds promising.
Yeah, it does. Well, GCM stands for Group Concept Mapping.
Okay.
And it's a really fascinating method.
Okay.
It's like imagine a way to visually map out all the different perspectives and ideas surrounding a complex issue.
All right.
So that's essentially what GCM does.
Got it.
It helps you see the big picture
Okay.
while also zeroing in on those like specific challenges and
Right.
opportunities.
So it's like creating a roadmap,
Yeah,
but instead of physical locations, you're mapping out ideas and perspectives.
exactly.
Okay.
And in the case of Agora schools,
Yeah.
the researchers used GCM to gather input from all sorts of people who would be involved in this transition,
Like who?
like students, parents, coaches,
Okay.
experts, and school leaders.
So they really wanted to get a comprehensive view
A comprehensive view.
of the situation.
Exactly.
Did they just like sit everyone down in a room and say, tell us what you think?
Well, it starts with a focus question.
Okay.
So in this case,
Yeah.
the question was,
Yeah.
what is needed for the transition to an Agora school?
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
they used a brainstorming process to gather all sorts of ideas and perspectives.
So it's like a giant brainstorming session.
It is a giant brainstorming session.
I bet they generated a ton of ideas.
Oh, tons.
What did they do with all that input?
Well, that's where the mapping part comes in.
Okay.
So they took all those brainstormed ideas
Yeah.
and they started grouping them together based on similarities.
Okay.
So imagine like a big whiteboard covered in sticky notes,
Okay. I can picture that.
each one representing an idea,
Uh-huh.
and you start clustering those sticky notes together,
Right.
creating groups that represent shared themes or concerns.
So you're bringing order to the chaos.
Exactly. You're creating a visual representation
Yeah.
of how all these different ideas connect.
I like that.
And here's the thing.
What?
The participants themselves
Okay.
are involved in this sorting and clustering process.
Oh, so it's not just the researchers doing it.
No, it's a collaborative effort.
That makes sense.
They discuss and debate
Okay.
which ideas belong together,
Uh-huh.
which helps to build a shared understanding. of the challenges and opportunities.
So you've got this map
Right.
that visually represents everyone's thoughts and ideas.
Exactly.
How does that actually help with those 5 transition problems we talked about earlier?
Okay, well, let's start with dissent.
Okay, dissent,
Remember, that's all about
differing opinions.
those differing opinions and perspectives.
Yeah,
GCM is fantastic at bringing those disagreements to the surface
okay.
in a constructive way.
So instead of them like simmering beneath the surface
Right.
and potentially derailing the whole transition,
Exactly.
they're out in the open where they can be addressed.
They're right there on the mat.
Yeah.
You can see them.
That makes a lot of sense.
So when you can literally see the points of contention,
Uh-huh.
it's much easier to have productive conversations about them.
Totally.
What about distributed control?
Okay, distributed control. That was the one where it's like, who's actually making the decisions?
Right, when authority is spread out
Yeah.
among all these different groups.
How does GCM help with that?
Well, remember how I said that the participants themselves
Yes.
are involved in creating the map?
Yeah.
That's key for addressing distributed control.
Okay.
GCM gives voice to all the different stakeholders,
Uh-huh.
ensuring that everyone feels heard and that their perspectives are valued.
So it's not just about what the school leaders want
You're right.
or what the teachers think.
Exactly.
It's about incorporating input from students' parents.
Yep. Yeah.
And even experts from outside the school.
It's about bringing everyone to the table.
I like that.
Yeah.
So it's a much more collaborative and democratic approach
It is.
to decision making.
Which is essential when
Yeah.
you're trying to implement a model like Agora that's all about empowering students and distributing authority.
Okay, so we've tackled dissent.
Uh-huh.
We've tackled distributed control.
Yep.
What about determination of short-term steps?
Okay, so that's figuring out what to do first.
Right. Like, how do you actually create that roadmap?
Well, GCM is excellent for prioritization.
Okay.
So in the process, participants don't just cluster the ideas,
Right.
they also rate them on 2 key factors,
Material.
necessity and difficulty.
So they're asking, how important is this idea for a successful transition?
Exactly.
And how hard will it be to actually implement?
You got it.
Okay.
And by looking at those ratings, you can start to identify those low-hanging fruit,
Okay. The easy wins?
the actions that are both highly necessary
Yeah.
and relatively easy to implement.
That sounds incredibly helpful
It is.
for creating a clear roadmap.
Yeah, you're not just randomly picking actions.
Yeah.
You're prioritizing
Yeah.
based on data
Based on data.
in a shared understanding.
I like that.
You can also identify those ideas that are seen as really important but also very difficult to pull off.
Okay. The tough ones.
Yeah,
So those would require more planning, more resources, more collaboration.
more of everything.
Okay. That's 3 problems down.
3 down?
What about the danger of lock-in?
Ah, yes. So how do you stay flexible? Avoid making decisions that might limit your options in the future.
Exactly.
Well, remember, GCM isn't a one-time thing.
Okay.
It's an ongoing process.
So you're constantly revisiting the map,
Exactly.
checking in with stakeholders, gathering new information as the transition unfolds.
That's a living document.
I like that it evolves.
It
That
evolves.
the situation changes.
Exactly. And that's crucial for avoiding lock-in.
Makes sense.
As you learn more, you can adjust your course,
Yeah.
reprioritize actions, and make sure you're staying on track to achieve those long-term goals.
So you're constantly adapting
Adapting.
and responding to new information.
That's the key.
Okay. What about political myopia?
Ah, yes, the long game.
The long game.
Mm.
How does GCM help you build long-term support for a reform,
Okay.
especially when you have those changing political winds to contend with?
Well, GCM helps with that
Okay.
by promoting transparency and inclusivity
Okay.
throughout the entire process.
So it's about bringing everyone to the table, regardless of their political affiliations or
But it's-
short-term agendas.
It's about the big picture
Yeah.
and getting them invested in the long-term vision for the school.
So when people feel like they've been part of the process,
Yes.
that they've had a chance to voice their concerns,
Mm-hmm.
contribute their ideas,
Yep.
they're much more likely to support the reform.
They feel ownership,
Exactly.
even when things get tough.
It's about building ownership and shared responsibility.
It is.
That's a great point. Okay, so we've seen how GCM can help with all 5 of those transition problems.
We have.
But let's get a little more specific.
Okay.
Can you give us an example
Sure.
of what this actually looks like in practice using data from the thesis?
Absolutely. So one of the clusters
Okay.
that emerged from the GCM analysis
Right.
was labeled Leadership Upholding Fundamental Principles.
Okay, so everyone agreed that strong leadership is important.
Yeah.
That's not exactly a groundbreaking revelation.
True. But here's where it gets interesting.
Okay, tell me.
When you dig deeper into this cluster,
Yeah.
the GCM data reveals some nuances.
Okay.
For example, one of the subpoints
Uh-huh.
within this cluster
Okay.
was the challenge of finding qualified coaches.
Right. Because coaches play such a central role in the Agora model.
They do.
It's not just about delivering information.
Sure.
It's about guiding and mentoring students on their personalized learning journeys.
Exactly. And the participants in the study
Yeah.
recognized that finding individuals who could truly embrace the Agora philosophy
Right.
and effectively coach students in this way
Yeah.
would be a significant hurdle.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So even though everyone agreed that strong leadership was crucial,
Right.
they also acknowledged that finding the right people to fill those leadership roles would be challenging.
It's not easy to find those people
No, it's not.
who can really embody that approach.
What other insights did the GCM data reveal?
Let's see. Well, another interesting point that came up was the importance of getting buy-in from school management.
Oh, okay. So like, even if the principal and other administrators are on board
Right.
with the general idea,
Uh-huh.
they might have concerns
They might, yeah.
about specific aspects.
Absolutely. Like, think about it.
Okay.
Agora schools are doing away with traditional grades.
Right.
They're also, decentralizing decision-making.
Yeah. Giving more power to students and coaches.
Exactly. So some administrators might worry about how to ensure accountability.
Right. How do you measure progress?
Exactly. Or maintain quality control.
Yeah. In this kind of system.
Yeah, it's a big shift
Huge.
from the way most schools operate.
Totally.
And the GCM data really highlighted the need to address those concerns head on.
Okay. So you can't just tell administrators that the Agora model is great.
No, you got to show them.
Right.
You need to involve them in the process,
Mm-hmm.
understand their perspectives,
Get them on board.
and work together to find solutions that everyone feels good about.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
It's about building trust.
Yeah. Collaborate.
Collaboration, yeah.
So we've talked a lot about how GCM can be used to manage this transition to the Agora model.
We have.
But let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
How could our listener use GCM
Right.
in their own educational setting?
Good question.
Because not everyone's going to be starting an Agora school from scratch.
Right.
Right.
That's true. The beauty of GCM is
Yeah.
that it's not just for these radical transformations.
Oh.
Like the Agora model,
Yeah.
it can be used for any kind of change initiative
Really?
in education.
So whether you're a teacher who wants to bring more hands-on learning into their classroom,
Right.
a principal who's trying to improve communication between teachers and parents,
Mm-hmm.
or even a parent who's advocating for a new program at their child's school,
Absolutely.
GCM could be a valuable tool.
It could be very valuable.
So it all starts with identifying the change you want to make
Right.
and framing it as a focus question.
Yeah. What do you want to change?
So for example, if you're that teacher who wants to bring in more hands-on learning,
Okay.
your focus question might be something like, what's needed to successfully implement more hands-on learning in our classroom?
Exactly. A good focus question.
And that question becomes the starting point
Right.
for your GCM process.
We're jumping off point.
Then you gather your stakeholders.
Right. The people who would be involved in this change.
So in this case, it might be other teachers,
Mm-hmm.
the principal, maybe even some parents and students.
Absolutely. Bring them all in.
Right. Then you go through those same steps we've been talking about.
Right.
Brainstorming ideas,
Yeah.
sorting them into clusters,
Right.
rating them on necessity and difficulty,
Right.
and creating that visual map that represents everyone's perspectives.
That's a powerful process.
Yeah. I can see how this would be incredibly helpful for getting everyone on the same page
It really is.
and creating a shared understanding of the challenges and opportunities.
Yeah, it's not just about creating a plan. It's about building that momentum.
Yeah.
And support for the change.
It's about buy-in.
Yeah, buy-in, exactly.
When people feel like they've been part of the process,
Right.
they're much more likely to embrace the change
They're invested.
and contribute to its success.
That's right.
So it's not just about managing the logistics.
No.
It's about creating a culture of collaboration
Yeah.
and shared ownership.
Well said.
That's a powerful message
It is.
for anyone who's trying to make a positive difference in their educational community.
I think so too.
And the best part is that GCM is a flexible tool.
It is very flexible.
You can adapt it to fit your specific needs and context.
Absolutely.
So whether you're trying to implement a radical new model like Agora, or simply make a small but meaningful change in your classroom,
Right.
GCM can provide a framework
A good framework.
for navigating that change effectively and building a shared vision for the future.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of educational transitions and the power of group concept mapping.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
It's been fun.
Yeah, this has been really interesting.
I always enjoy talking about this stuff.
Me too. And hopefully everyone listening has learned something new today
I hope so.
and maybe even feels inspired
Yeah,
to make a difference in their own educational community.
that's the goal.
So if you're feeling inspired, go out there and explore GCM further.
Do it.
It might just be the tool you need to turn your vision into reality.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us today, and keep those knowledge-seeking minds engaged.
See ya!